So for those of you who are just here for the lavender, this is going to be a part 2 of that video we started last summer. So last summer we took some lavender cuttings and I showed you guys how to root them, and we got them rooted in their sand. I showed you the roots and we were very successful with it. Let's go take a look at these guys. All right, so there it is, just tucked back away amongst all our other little plants here. We've got these little lavenders that we took last summer. They've been sitting in this little 1-gallon pot in all the sand. And for those of you who are always asking me, this is a hoop house. It's a cold frame. It is not a greenhouse. And so these doors on both ends remain open through the winter. These things froze hard as a rock in here, and they're bouncing back, and you can see that new growth coming out really nicely. So now that they've gone through winter and these little roots have hardened off, let's get these out of the sand and pot it up into their own individual pots. Let's take a look at those roots again. All right, I've got this old tub. We're just gonna pull these little guys out. Got a few weeds in there. We're gonna gently reach down under the sand. In fact, yeah, we're gonna have to kind of dig down a little bit. We'll get down to those roots. These guys, like I said, it's so much easier to do this once they've gone through the winter, because those roots are a lot tougher. They've gone dormant. The plants have gone dormant. And so they've gone through the whole winter and toughened up and hardened off. So you don't have to be so delicate with those roots. And that's why I like to do this kind of transplanting with these cuttings this time of year. Early spring, late winter, early spring. Now I pulled these up for you guys. Look at that. I pulled these up for you guys last fall to show you the roots. Typically though, that was just for this video, but typically you wouldn't want to pull these up. You would want to, at that time, just leave them right in their pot and just let them continue growing. They might have put on more roots. I did that just for this video for you guys, but you wouldn't want to do that. Just leave them put. Now, these guys have got some nice healthy root systems and they've hardened off really well. So they're gonna bounce back much easier playing around with them and tearing them apart and all that kind of thing. Because remember, we potted these guys into into one same big pot here, and so all the roots can get tangled. Much easier to pull apart and work with once they're hardened off. There they are, all settled in their nice new little beds. The last step is to just fertilize and use a little pre-emergent on them, and then we'll just water these guys through the summer and let them go. We'll come back when something new happens. Now today is April 16th, so we got a little ways to go, but I'll show you an update right now. All right, so here we are, the 22nd of June, and it has been quite a while since we did these little lavender cuttings and potted them up here for you. But let's take a look at what we got. So just full disclosure, I left everything sitting right here in the spot that they originally were, and we've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of them. So we've kept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So out of the 10, we've got 5. Now, I've got some thoughts on exactly, in fact, I know why it went this way. Why did we lose all of those cuttings? Half of them? Because I disturbed the heck out of them. I was doing that video last summer and I pulled them all up and I showed you the roots and totally beat them all to heck right at the end of summer, when they really need to be getting settled in and getting ready for the winter. Instead, I pulled them out, I showed you the roots and got them all disturbed and beat up and repotted them, and then they had to get reestablished, and that was the biggest problem that caused that. So how do we prevent this? Well, don't do what I do. Don't rip them out and show them to you. I do that for the video and get cocky and think I'm going to make everyone survive, which I didn't. But if you would put these little cuttings into individual little cells or something, or individual little 3x3 pots or something small like that, and just leave them in those pots. They rooted very well, lots of them. Just leave them in those little pots. They'd have more time to continue growing more roots going into the winter versus getting screwed up like I did and then trying to reestablish going into winter. They'd be fully rooted, and then going into the next spring, you're not pulling them all out and repotting them, and so they just stay put right where they're at, and then they'll just wake up and coast into summer I'll bet you guys would find that you're going to get close to 100% of them to survive and continue growing on. Now, what do we do from here? I've been hearing people tell me that their cuttings that's actually rooted and are growing on are getting all leggy and ugly and they're not really growing right. And you see, that's exactly what mine are doing. And why is that? We've talked about that a ton on this channel. Why is that? Because we need to prune. These are so young and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They look leggy and ugly and all that because we need to prune them. They need to get cut back, even though it's hard to do. You let them grow this big so that all this top growth can produce tons of food and start making massive root growth. But sometime midsummer, you got to prune them back so it can force those roots to start pushing out new buds further down on the stem here. You can already see down in there, we've got little growth coming up all throughout there, and it wants to start pushing out, but the plant's trying to support all this lanky long stuff. So just because we rooted these cuttings, we're not done yet. It's going to take a little time. Next year, these things are going to take off and be much bushier and fuller and healthier. So what we're going to do is come in here. I know it's hard, but I'm just going to snip that and that and that, and we're going to cut all this little stuff. In fact, I'm going to cut that whole guy right there. And we're going to pull all this material out of here, and you could actually take these and make more cuttings out of them because these guys root as softwood cuttings. Not all plants are like that, but these lavender are. So now you can see we've got a much more compact little plant that's got all kinds of new little growth just starting to pop up along there. And those roots that are a size that was supporting all that top lanky growth is now, they're now going to be able to support all of these individual little growths, and they will start flushing out more. And then we'll come back next year probably, just depending on how fast they grow, we could come back maybe even this summer and hack them back a little bit more. But that's the whole goal with these guys. In the beginning, you've got to prune them back. Now all of these guys, these stems here are going to grow stronger and thicker, and they're going to start pushing out more growth. So here we are, we've got 5 left. I've pulled out all the dead plants, and you know, we know the mistake that caused that. You guys don't need to make the same mistake, but here we go. We've got 5 beautiful, healthy plants. They look a little scraggly and ugly right now, but you watch and see. In fact, I gotta pull that little top off, boom. Now it'll put more shoots up there. But you guys will see, these will start bushing out more and more, and I'll come back later and we'll show them to you. Today is June 22nd. We'll come back when there's something to show you. Here we go. All right, so today is July 10th, and I thought, you know, I could continue this on for another year, you know, but I'll just do updates in a year. I think we're at that point now where I need to show you these lavender and where they're at so you can get an understanding of how they've grown, where they've come from, and how we get to this point. So here we are, here's our little lavender cuttings, and the first thing you'll notice is one of them died back right here again. We actually, if you've been following the news, had a massive excessive heat thing going on here in Western Washington, and it went on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, and I did lose some cuttings. That guy got lost in it, and in fact, I'll show it to you right here. One of our hydrangeas that we had going, this little guy's starting to recover. It had a lot more growth, and it just started dying back. But that heat was a killer. We've got 4 of them that are still doing really good though, and this is the question I get from a lot of people. They say my lavender has been growing tall and lanky and just flops over. It's not really doing what it's supposed to do. It's not really turning into a bush. This is how you do it. If you just watch that last little clip, we pruned it back and see all that new growth that's just sprouting up there from down lower on the branch. Look at that. All that new growth, and it's still tender. These plants are tough to get started in the beginning, as we're finding, but look at that. We pruned this back. In fact, you can see right down in there, that little branch right there by my second finger here, we pruned that, and a whole bunch new growth came up from further down. And you can see that over here as well. Look at that. We pruned it back, and we've got tons of new growth. Now, it's still early on in the summer. What I could do is come back and just kind of shave off the top of all these, and they'd branch out even more. And then where you're going to finally see the good results of this that you're looking for is after this winter coming up. So we're in the middle of the summer still, but the more branching we can get this year, then this will go through the winter, and all of these branches will harden off here and become woody, just like that stem right there. And then the following year they'll be stout, stable plants that are little shrubs that are standing up on their own with some hard woody material, and then new growth will start coming off of that. Let's go take a look at the one on our back porch. So here's our lavender in a whiskey barrel, and you can see, we'll come down, it's several years old, and in fact I get this question a lot on these lavender videos. This is Hidcote, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the name of this type of lavender that I bought. I just picked it up at a nursery a few years back and just broke the tag, but anyway, we've always got the video to refer back to. So we've got this plant that's, I don't know, it's probably 4 years old now, but look at that hard woody material, and you can see as it starts coming up, the wood from the previous winter is hardening off, and what that does is create a nice stable bush plant or shrub to start growing more new green growth from the top. And then you've got a stable, strong, solid plant that can continue to grow nice and upright like this. So we started with 10 cuttings originally, and we ended up with 4. Let's go talk about how we can get some better numbers out of that. So first of all, I greatly inhibited my odds of getting all 10 of those things to survive when last summer, after I got them to root, I dug into that sand and I pulled them all out of there, washed them off, and showed you the roots. I really disturbed the heck out of them in the process, but I do that to show you guys the roots all in one video so you can see how that method is successful. So by disturbing those roots right in the middle of the prime growing season, I really upset their ability to continue growing and turning into healthy plants, because we did this later in the summer, and then heading into winter they were trying to get re-established at a time when they should have really been putting down more roots and already established in the medium they were growing in. So how would you prevent what I did and losing all of those lavender cuttings and ending up with 9 or 10 solid plants by the end of it instead of just 4? It's very simple. Don't pull the roots up. I would leave those plants in that pot, even if they're in a single 1 gallon or 2 gallon pot like I had in that video. I would just leave them in that sand or that rooting medium all through that summer. Don't pull them up. All through the fall, all through the winter. Leave them outside. If you're in an extremely cold environment and you're worried about frost, put them in a shed. Keep them watered in the shed. But just leave them outside. Let them go dormant. And then the following late winter, early spring, right before they start breaking dormancy, then go ahead and pull them all apart when they're sleeping, when they've already gotten good and established and then they've hardened off. Pull all those roots apart, pot them into individual pots, and I know they're going to take off for you, and they're going to grow much better, and they're going to be stronger and hardier because they had a better chance in the late summer the previous summer. So that's number 1. And number 2, don't have a heat wave. That was a killer around here, and we lost a few plants in here. It was really tough, but you know, you can't always predict nature. Things are going to happen like that. But in the end, we got 4 beautiful new lavender, and what's really cool about this and why I love plant propagation so much is because I can take those 4 plants, and now the amount of cuttings I can get off those 4 plants isn't just 1 plant. It's times 4 or 5 now because I've got 5 plants. So you can see how in a short amount of time, even though it took us a year to get to this point, we can start just ramping up production in a massive, massive way. Now, I don't intend on starting a lavender farm, but I do love lavender, and I'll plant these out around the place somewhere eventually, probably out in my orchard or in the garden area, something like that. But anyway, you can see how all of this works over time and these plants develop. So hopefully this video and this little time lapse of having them grow after they rooted and then we went into the next spring, hopefully that helps you guys that are struggling with your lavender. So I hope you like this one. If you did, you know what to do. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe if you want to follow along and see how these little guys do in the following years. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you in the next video. Adios.